Journalist Julian Sher, our guest. He is a prolific author. He's written 6 books, and his newest one is called Somebody's Daughter. It's absorbing. It's about sex trafficking of children in the United States and somewhat in Canada, but mostly the United States. So what does happen when, first of all, let's start with the money. The pimps get all the money, and how do they dispense it?
Well, I mean, I talk about, there's one anecdote where Maria is out with one of the other girls who's being controlled by a powerful pimp, a pimp who's making millions, and one of them spills some pennies out of her purse, and she says, oh, we have to pick them up. And Maria says, what are you talking about? She says, oh yeah, we have to give it to Daddy, to the pimp. I mean, every single penny. If they want to buy a glass of water, a bottle of water, or get a chocolate bar, they have to account for it in their receipts. The pimps take all the money. And you know, what one FBI agent says to me is that many of the pimps are drug lords who got smart, because what they realize is if you're bringing cocaine into Vancouver or Seattle, it's expensive, it's risky, you get arrested, you're going to jail for a long time. You traffic a young girl, you're not going to get arrested. If you are, you're hardly going to do time. And more importantly, you could keep using that girl. That girl, you know, once you sell that kilo of coke, it's gone. A girl, you can keep using her over and over again.
But how many of these young girls are on coke? Are on drugs?
No,
or are they clean?
They're
surprisingly, what's the drill?
Surprisingly, they're clean because it makes them a better product for the pimp. Eventually, a lot will start taking drugs to either numb the pain. And what's shocking is the statistics about the life survival rate. Once you're in the game, as it's called, the trade, it's horrific because the physical and mental degeneration that goes on can be quite horrifying.
Okay, how did the FBI agent get to Maria? How did he gain her trust?
Well, she gets arrested, as often happens. But in the past, it's the same thing that happens here in Vancouver, where you have a handful of trained police officers. When a young girl gets arrested, they know how to deal with her. But what often happens with most police forces and most individual cops is they see this young girl the same way you and I would be. She's kind of like a juvenile whore. They treat her with the same contempt that she's used to, so she's not going to open up. When she gets arrested first by a special squad in Vegas that is attuned to young girls, and they treat her differently, so she's not put in the net with the rest of the adults. Then when she gets home, the FBI agent meets her, and originally there's a lot of F you and I don't want to deal with you. But slowly, as she told me, she said, I realized this is the first man that, 1, didn't want anything from me, and 2, respected me. And the amazing thing about Dan Garabant, the FBI agent, is through their many years of dealing with her, he never judged her. He never passed a value judgment. He always said, you know, I'm here to try to help you. You know what I think about what you should do, but you've got to do what you have to do. And he began to win her trust that way. And eventually she is willing to testify against her pimp. And when the FBI takes down her pimp, by the way, treating him like a mafia guy, they do a racketeering investigation, wiretaps, surveillance, seizing property. He will eventually go away for 25 years.
Well, how is she respected in a courtroom? Maria.
In her case, the guy pleaded guilty before she had to testify. But you raise an important issue, because in a couple of other cases I document in the book, what happens, of course, is that the smart defense attorneys doing their job put the girl on trial. In one case, they'll say, you've been whoring, you've been prostituting, you've been taking drugs. But what they say is, that door was not locked. You could have left at any time, which is true. I mean, there are cases where girls are chained, but in most cases, they're not imprisoned. And he sort of said, you could have left at any time. And it took the prosecutor a lot of good oratory to show to the juries that this is what makes this crime so pernicious, that the girls are not chained, that they are trafficked, and they are psychologically brainwashed to believe that they should stay with their pimp.
Right, so now her pimp is in jail.
That's right.
She doesn't have a lot of money, I'm assuming.
That's right, and in fact, leads to the other dilemma, is that even after we've rescued these girls, there are some good groups here in Vancouver who are doing work to try to offer these girls beds and rehab, but in most cases we don't have those services. So what is a young girl like Maria to do? She has a newborn baby, she's struggling, and she has to figure, in this economy, is she going to get a job? But even if she does, she has to weigh, am I going to go work for $9 an hour? Or she gets a call on her phone, she knows if she does a trick, she could make more in an hour than she would in a week. And it's a choice she has to make every day, and it's a difficult choice.
Well, what are the moms and dads in all of this? Because in Maria's case, she comes from a middle-class family, obviously has
They're there.
Some support or
They're
not?
there to support her, but you know, right now Maria is 22, so she's a young adult. She can kind of do what she wants. She's tried to get out of the game entirely. She slipped back into the stripping world as a way to kind of make money without being on the street. I think she's still having a rough time at it, but she calls her FBI agent regularly and they stay in touch, so there might still be a chance for her.
As a parent, how do we protect our children from this?
Well, it goes back to where we started, you know, with the young boy. I mean, whether your kid stands a risk of being kidnapped or sexually abused or being turned into a prostitute, I mean, you have to obviously make sure there's no abuse going on, check people around them, but you have to enable that kid with a sense of self-worth and confidence. And I think more than anything, knowing that if he or she is in trouble, they can come to you as the parent and talk to you without fear of being judged.
Right.
And it's that without fear of being judged that's so important.
And as you know, in the movies, mostly it seems that young girls on the street come from homes where they were sexually abused.
That's right. And the statistics show that the amount of girls who are on the street who were sexually abused or in foster care or in poverty or often just hard times is quite high, for sure. Goes back to the issue of runaways and that we have a huge runaway problem. Look at, you know, and what we also see is that the Pictons of the world, they know. You know, Robert Picton, the Green River killer just in the Seattle area, all the way back to Jack the Ripper, who has always been the target of our most famous serial killers. It has always been young women on the run who are forced into prostitution because the killer knows that nobody cares about them.
Where do the gangs fit into this picture, or do they?
They do, often in a direct way. There's actually a Hells Angels chapter president in Nevada who actually runs a brothel.
Right. Great.
So it's kind of, he was convenient to be featured in a couple of my books because he crossed the borders. It's known that the Hells Angels were active in the sex trade and the strip dancing here in Vancouver. All through Quebec, a lot of the strip bars the girls were controlled by the Hells Angels. So the gangs do fit in, but it's still mainly an issue of drugs. I mean, that's where the gangs
So a
make their
Bacon
money.
brother, now only 2 Bacon brothers left, but a Bacon brother would be more into drugs and grow-ups than into trafficking women.
That's right. I mean, it's not to say it doesn't happen. For sure it happens. You also usually need some kind of international connections, but it's clearly about drugs. You know what I always say when people are talking about is there going to be retaliation for the killing of Jonathan Bacon and the wounding of other people? For sure there will be, but I think what people have to understand is that the gangs, whether it's the Bacon Brothers, the UN Gang, the Hells Angels, which are still the dominant gang in BC, I think we're looking at, they still have about 8 chapters and they're quite flourishing. These gangs are businessmen first and foremost. They're in the profit game. And you go to war because it'll protect your profits, it'll protect your reputation, but it's not your preferred strategy because war and gunfights bring down police heat and it's bad for business.
Right, sure. And when you say retaliation, in what form? No one knows. But
no one knows. I mean,
generally.
Usually it's going to be violent retaliation
within the gang world.
Within the gang world, I mean, innocent bystanders can get hit, as we saw with the Surrey Six. The problem with what happened in the killing outside the casino with Jonathan Bacon is not only did you have a family leader like Jonathan Bacon who was gunned down, but you had the niece of one of the chapter leaders of the Hells Angels who was seriously injured. And that kind of brazen attack does go to the core of reputation, right? I mean, the Hells Angels and the other gangs are in a corner where they have to be seen to be responding. But I mean, police are waiting. I was talking to police in the last couple of weeks. They're nervously waiting what could happen next. It's clear we're in a situation of instability in Vancouver. The Hells Angels have kind of regained their supremacy. As I said, they've got about 8 chapters. We're seeing a flourishing of support gangs, puppet gangs that are coming around the Hells Angels. The Bacon Brothers, the Scorpions, basically have been decimated. They more or less do not exist anymore. I mean,
the Red Scorpions.
Right. I mean, if you've got one guy in jail, well, one guy dead, 2 facing serious drug charges, several others arrested. The UN Gang, and the independent soldiers, which were sort of the second tier under the Hells Angels, along with the Red Scorpions. Well, the Bacon brothers have been eliminated. We just saw news. There's one UN gang member yesterday who fled.
Right.
He was supposed to appear in court or dead. The UN gang never really recovered from the jailing of their president, Clay Rouche. So we're in a situation again of instability. There are some younger, new gangs that are rising up. We'll have to see what happens.
Well, as you said in one of your great articles, no matter how mean and tough you are, someone with a gun can take you out.
And that's what happens.
Next book in the hopper?
Don't know yet. Still busy working on a lot of articles for the Globe and Mail, so I'll see what comes up.
I guess you do have a day job.
It's good to have a day job.
Nice to see you again.
Great to see you.
Thank you. Julian Sher, his newest book, Somebody's Daughter, The Hidden Story of America's Prostituted Children and the Battle to Save Them. Coming up, the Arts Club opens its Stanley Theatre season with the brave, breathtaking contemporary musical Next to Normal. Stay with us for a catch-up with Artistic Director Bill Millard.